They see your light before you even know it's there. It always starts with a strange magnetism. They're drawn to you quickly, intensely, as if they've discovered something rare. They watch you, study you, mirror you. They make you feel chosen, special, even destined. But beneath the charm, something darker is at work. Because narcissists don't choose randomly. They don't attach to just anyone. They gravitate toward a very specific kind of person. Not the weakest, but the strongest. Not the most broken, but the most whole. They're pulled toward the ones who carry something they don't understand, something they can't fake, can't access, and yet can't resist. Empathy, depth, purpose, light. You might not have seen it in yourself yet. You might have thought your softness made you vulnerable, that your compassion made you easy to manipulate. But to them, it was gold. Because narcissists don't seek love. They seek fuel. They seek supply. And the people they choose the ones who radiate something they can't generate on their own. The chosen ones. The ones with presence, with heart, with soul, and the very qualities that make you magnetic. Your emotional clarity, your intuition, your ability to see the best in people are the same qualities they target, to exploit, extract, and eventually try to extinguish. Not because you were weak, but because you were never meant to dim. You reflect everything they'll never become. To a narcissist, admiration always walks hand in hand with envy. They don't just see your light, they resent it. Because deep down they know. You feel what they can't. You love how they never will. Your authenticity makes them feel false. Your depth makes them feel hollow. Your inner peace, even when shaky, confronts their constant inner chaos. And so, they do what narcissists always do. When faced with a reflection they can't bear, they try to possess it. They study the way you speak, the softness of your voice, the steadiness in your eyes. They mimic your kindness. They match your beliefs. They don't just admire you. They become a version of you, but only to get close enough to control it. Because in their world, admiration is never safe. They can't just love what you are. They must conquer it. They must pull it into themselves so they can feel powerful. Because standing next to you makes them feel the truth they avoid at all costs. They don't know who they are without a mirror. And you? You were never just a mirror. You were a reminder of everything they're not, everything they've buried, everything they had to kill off just to survive. And in that contrast, they don't feel inspired. They feel small. So even as they pull you close, they're already planning how to bring you down. Because narcissists don't just feed off admiration. They feed off control. And the more you shine, the more they feel the need to own it or destroy it. The idealization trap and why it feels so real at first. At first, it feels like a miracle. They see you, hear you, mirror your soul. They tell you you're different, not like the others. They speak your language before you've even taught it to them. And deep inside, a part of you lights up, not because you're naive, but because you've waited your whole life for someone to finally understand you. The connection feels electric, cosmic, even. They seem emotionally open, curious, awake. They reflect back all your beauty, your depth, your values. But here's the truth. They're not connecting. They're collecting. They study your emotional blueprint so they can use it later. They idealize you, not because they see your soul, but because they want to own it. Because idealization is not admiration in the narcissist's world. It's strategy. It's bait. And the more they praise you, the more you attach. The more they reflect you, the more you reveal. And what feels like closeness is actually exposure. You start letting your guard down. You start trusting their words, their gestures, their intensity. You start believing that maybe, just maybe, someone finally sees the real you. But what you don't know yet is that narcissists only idealize one kind of person, the ones they're preparing to devalue, because they don't just seek light. They're afraid of it. They can't hold it. So eventually, they must dim it. And the moment they sense you're fully in, the shift begins. Devaluation always follows admiration. You'll feel it before you understand it. The tone changes. The compliments fade. The warmth cools slowly, then all at once. They stop being fascinated by your depth and start critiquing your softness. They roll their eyes at your sensitivity, mock your values, subtly correct your memories of who you are, and you still trying to preserve what once felt so sacred. Begin to question yourself instead. Was I too emotional? Did I misread everything? Am I asking for too much? This is the genius of the narcissist cycle. They break you down not with cruelty, but with confusion, because you're not being discarded by someone who never cared. You're being discarded by someone who once worshipped you. And now, they act like you're a burden, like your presence is too much, like your light somehow became a flaw. But here's the truth they'll never admit. You didn't change. Their mask slipped. And because your soul sees too much, because you hold a mirror that's too honest, they begin to punish you for it. They need to feel superior again. They need to watch you shrink. So they distort your reality. They pull away, then return. They keep you doubting, just enough to stay. And in your effort to win back the version of them they pretended to be, you start abandoning the version of yourself you've always been. This is how the chosen one begins to forget their power. Not because it's gone, but because it was slowly replaced with someone else's projection. But that shift, that moment you begin to doubt your own light, is exactly where the narcissist wins. Until you remember why you stayed so long and why that doesn't mean you were weak. This is the part people misunderstand the most. They wonder why you didn't leave sooner, why you kept giving chances, why someone so intuitive, so wise, so full of light, stayed in the dark for so long. But here's what they don't see. You didn't stay because you were weak. You stayed because you were loyal, because you saw the wounded child underneath the cruelty, because your heart doesn't just feel, it understands. You believed love could heal them, that patience could soften them, that if you just held on a little longer, the version of them you first met would come back. But narcissists don't return to who they were, because that version was never real. It was a mask, a costume tailored to your spirit, a reflection designed to hook your heart. And when the mask slipped, you didn't fall apart. You reached for understanding. You tried harder. You gave more. Because that's what chosen ones do. They fight for the people they love, even when it costs them pieces of themselves. But here's what you must know now. You didn't stay because you were blind. You stayed because you were built to believe in transformation. And that belief is not your shame. It's your gift. The mistake wasn't loving too much. It was forgetting that you deserve to be loved in return. And the moment that truth comes back to you, the spell breaks. Because narcissists don't know what to do with someone who finally remembers their worth. The shift narcissists can't handle. It doesn't happen loudly, not with rage or revenge or final words meant to wound. It happens in stillness, a quiet awakening, a moment when something deep inside you clicks into place. You stop explaining, stop overgiving, stop contorting yourself to make the connection feel safe. And that shift, the reclaiming of your energy, is the one thing the narcissist can't handle. Because they were never afraid of losing you. They were afraid of losing your supply, your attention, your devotion, your emotional labor. So when you no longer react, when you stop feeding the cycle, When you disengage with dignity instead of drama, they spiral. They may try to pull you back with false apologies or sudden tenderness. They might rage, smear, love bomb again. They might pretend they've changed. But underneath it all, one truth remains. They don't want you healed. They want you hooked. Because your power, once so effortless, was their addiction. And now that you've returned it to yourself, they're starving for what they can no longer reach. This is when you realize their cruelty was never personal. Their charm was never real. Their love was never love. It was possession. And your peace? It threatens everything they've built their false self to protect. Because when you detach, you don't just walk away. You mirror back everything they've tried to hide. And that reflection, clear, calm, no longer available for distortion, is the one thing they can't survive. You were chosen because of your light, not because you were weak. You've probably asked yourself the question, why me? Why did they choose you? Why did they hurt you when all you did was love them? And here's the truth. They chose you not because you were easy to manipulate, but because your light was undeniable. They saw your empathy and envied it. They saw your wisdom and wanted to consume it. They saw your grounded heart and tried to shake it loose. You were chosen because your presence disturbed their false self. Because your soul couldn't be controlled forever. Because even under their fog, they sensed you are powerful in a way they will never be. And when you finally woke up, when you stopped begging, stopped bending, stopped bleeding just to keep the connection alive, you did what no narcissist can understand. You walked away, not because you stopped loving, but because you started loving yourself. And that, more than anything, is what makes you the one they'll never forget. Not the most broken, not the most naive, but the most radiant, even when dimmed. Because the truth is, chosen ones aren't defined by what they survive. They're defined by how they rise after it. More aware, more aligned, more whole than ever before. So no, your story doesn't end in pain. It ends in power. And if this spoke to something you've lived through, if you've been the light in someone else's darkness, if you've lost pieces of yourself, trying to love someone who could never meet you there, then know this: you are not alone. There are thousands walking this same path, quietly healing, quietly rising. And this space, this channel, this community is here for that journey. Share your story in the comments, not for validation, but for liberation. Because when chosen ones speak, others remember their power too. And if you're ready to go deeper into your healing, your boundaries, your truth, subscribe for more content like this. The more you remember who you are, the harder it becomes for anyone to ever make you forget again.